it is the Ohio State University linebacker, Baron Browning. This is a guy that I watched on tape along with his teammate, Pete Werner. And he, to me, is another one of these dime a dozen Ohio State linebackers. I think Pete Werner's a little bit different, which is why he's rated higher for me. Barrett Browning looks like the rest of these guys. He looks like Rayquan Mcmillan. He looks like the kid that was drafted last year. They all kind of look the same to me. Malik Harrison. They all kind of favor each other. You've seen one, you've seen them all in terms of these Ohio State linebackers. But I said all of that to flip his card over and take a look at why I feel the way that I do. Strengths. First thing you look at, size and build. You're talking about a 6'3", 241-pound linebacker. That's what you desire at the linebacker position. If you could draw it up, 6'3", 245 is pretty much what you're looking for, but that's not what you're going to get most times with linebackers. But that's what Ohio State covets. That's what they look to recruit, are the guys that either come in as grown men or they have the body type to fill out and become a grown man. They might come to campus as a 225-pound linebacker. By the time they leave, they're 245 pounds. And they look like a grown man, and they're chiseled, and they're physical specimen. Barrett Browning kind of fits that description. Athleticism. He's not a speed demon by any stretch of the imagination, but he's a good athlete. You know, he can move. And it kind of lends itself to the next pro, which is closing speed. And I think about the Alabama national championship game where he forces the fumble of Mac Jones. You give this guy a runway, clear for takeoff, nobody in front of him, he can close the distance very quickly. And I like him as a blitzer. They did a little bit of that at Ohio State. I thought they should have done a little bit more of that with him because he's his best at the line of scrimmage. I thought they asked him to drop into coverage a little bit too often for my liking. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But his closing speed, you see it. And on a play like the one against Alabama in the national championship game where he gets the sack and forces the fumble of Mac Jones early in that ball game, you see the closing speed of one Baron Browning. Physicality. Man, is this guy physical. You know, one of his best attributes is just his sheer physicality. He's a guy that comes with bad intentions. I'm watching him drop into coverage against Indiana, and they've got a shallow cross coming in his direction. The receiver doesn't see him coming, and he just mollywops him. I mean, knocks him, separates him from ball. It was a brutal hit, and it's what he brings to the table. You know, he's just a physical football player, and I love it. Explodes through contact, kind of piggybacking off of what I just mentioned. That's what he brings to the table. You know, just a level of physicality that when he hits somebody, he explodes through contact. Tackling prowess. To me, the physicality, the tackling ability, these are all the best attributes that Baron Browning has to offer. And while those are great attributes to have, it also speaks to some of his limitations, which we'll get to in a little bit. Blitzing capability. I talked about the hit on Mac Jones and wanting to see him blitz a little bit more. I thought he was more of a blitzer in 2019. When I watched him in 2019, I thought they utilized him a little bit more effectively. And it's a lot easier to blitz and hit home when the offense is more concerned with triple teaming Chase Young than they were in 2020 when he didn't exist. But I thought he was a lot more effective as a blitzer in 2019. But again, as I just mentioned, there was a reason behind that. And there's a reason that you go from 5 sacks in 2019 to just 1 sack in 2020. But some of that, too, was they weren't asking him to blitz as much. They were asking him to drop a little bit more. And I didn't think that was to his strength. I thought that was a bit to his detriment. Didn't get lost in the sea of Ohio State linebackers. This is something that I talk about with teams and universities that recruit so well, like Ohio State, like Alabama, like Clemson, not necessarily Clemson, but LSU. These are places where you go and the intent is to play early, but you get there and there are two upperclassmen that are just studs that are going to be drafted. And so you got to wait your turn. And then a young incoming freshman comes in and he's better than you too. And all of a sudden you're fighting to get on the field and you could easily transfer if you're not mentally tough enough. What that does is it breeds competition, but it also breeds an inner toughness. And for you to be able to stave off guys or just outlast what is being put in front of you. I mean, you think about the litany of Ohio State linebackers that have been drafted in the last 5 years or so. Talked about Malik Harrison being drafted last year. You're going to see Pete Werner drafted this year. Barrett Browning's going to be drafted. They got another kid at Ohio State that's going to be drafted this year potentially, or undrafted. He'll be in somebody's camp. That's for damn sure. You think about Baker that was drafted a couple of years ago. You think about Rayquan Mcmillan, who was drafted a couple of years ago. And so the list goes on and on and on with these Ohio State linebackers. They just keep coming. And so you got to find a way on the field and find a way to keep your spot. And he was able to do that over a 4-year period. Weaknesses, short area quickness. Don't think that's something he excels at. And that's why I don't like him in coverage very often. I'll double down on that. He doesn't have a great feel for space. He's one of those guys, at the combine, they have the 90-degree angle drill for linebackers where you get the guy with the football and he snaps the ball and he's telling you to backpedal and they tell you don't look back and they tell you don't look down, keep your eyes up, because they don't want you having to look to where you're going. Have a feel for the space around you, knowing where you are in relation to the receivers and the sidelines and where you are on the field, knowing down and distance. Be comfortable in knowing that I'm taking this 90-degree angle. I can look behind me to see where the receiver may be on the play. If I've got 2 on my side, where's the 2? Where's the 1? Is 3 entering my zone? Like, these are things that you can't see if you're looking back to run to a spot, which is what he does. He's mugging the B gap. He's standing up as a rusher on the outside, and he looks like he's coming, and then he turns around and sprints to a spot, and then he turns around and he's looking at the quarterback. That's trash. Because if one on your side is running a slant and you have no idea the quarterback's taking a 3-step drop, or if most in college football quarterbacks are in the gun or in the pistol, and so they're not even taking a step. It's plant, hitch, throw. And you're turning around running to get to a spot. You have no idea that slant's coming your way to make a play. So he doesn't have a great feel for space. His consistency, to me, is a bit off-putting, because you'll watch a whole game and not notice Barron Browning. And then there are games you watch and you say, man, I like number 5. But there's a disconnect there. So much so that I just talked about this with Jamin Davis. They would take Barron Browning off the field, at times. Not as much as they would Pete Werner to get other guys on the field, but they would take him off the field sometimes. Not a playmaker. That, and probably best suited for an odd front. That's just me personally. That he could be drafted by a 4-3 team, and they could feel like he's a perfect fit for a Sam backer. I don't think he's a Will at all. I think he's more of a Sam, personally, myself. But he's not a playmaker, man. He doesn't make a ton of plays. That play in the national championship game, forcing a fumble, that's an anomaly for him. That's not generally what he's doing. I look at this guy and I lump him in with the rest of these Ohio State linebackers, And generally the range for them, Jerome Baker, Rayquan McMillan, Malik Harrison, is usually second, third round. Generally, that's where those guys go. To me, I see him as a third or a fourth round pick. I would personally not select him until the fourth round. But I could see somebody being enamored with him in Ohio State and saying, we got a spot for him. And if you tell me that you play a 3-4 and you're going to play him at inside linebacker as one of your mics, okay, I like that. I think that's the best fit for him at the next level, personally. But my comp for him is Rayquan McMillan. And I told you, I love low-hanging fruit when it comes to comps and the draft because it's easy. You can see how these players mirror each other and how universities recruit the same type of athletes. And I think he's just like Rayquan McMillan in this sense. You got to know who you're drafting. Rayquan McMillan was drafted by the Dolphins. They quickly realized this is not what we thought we were getting. He doesn't fit in what we're trying to do. They traded him to the Raiders this past offseason. I don't know if he's fitting in there either or not. But to me, Baron Browning's effectiveness is going to be dictated by where he's drafted. He goes to the right team, he could turn into a beast. He goes to the wrong team, and he could be bouncing from roster to roster and out of the league in 4 years. So, that's my Baron Browning breakdown. He's my number 10 linebacker in this draft.
Louie